Just make sure you're awake. I didn't do it. I have an alibi.
Well, there was some questions.
A lot of nutters in California.
Some of the questions I just like, not when I tried to put something for the questions when I.
Yep, we're live.
They have issues with us as well because of the arbitration.
Right.
You said doo-doo.
You
said we do.
Somebody else also asked the question, could this have been somebody who get rid of, FBOs if they didn't want to pay for it until they were getting divorced?
Then she.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
There's ballparking of about 30-ish minutes. He's gonna go in, he's gonna put a text in our text that says when he's done with the second half, after that text is 20 minutes. It's still waiting to read it. So between 9:30, 9:45, it's hard to say, but I would be out there at 9:30. Yes, okay. So, you know, that kind of stuff. Probably about it there.
You said that last time, you said, this is my problem. It'll be at 8 o'clock on the dot. It'll be.
What is your pilot is? Oh.
You guys speak. I have. Jumping each other? Sunday morning. Beautiful Sunday morning.
You go to Roblox?
It's combat robots. Oh, dude, it's fantastic. And a bunch of the school teams, the robotic teams, they have like battle bots that they build.
That'd be awesome. Is it like in Big Hero 6?
It's a little bit like the Big Hero 6 guy's not there. But I can.
Well, there's no fun then. I'm not going.
I can dress like it.
You can say you are not allergic to.
So we have a robotics teacher that old Wells private school in Japan, and they do the first robotics team, but it's also bigger than that. Robotics.
Sweet. Hey everyone. Nice busy Sunday morning.
So I'm Steve Goodgame, K5ATA. I am the education manager at the league. We're talking today, whoops, I got to click a button on. You can't see it, but I can. About STEM and youth outreach. The way I kind of do these is I'd much rather than be like a conversation. So if you have questions in the middle, throw something at me, get my attention. I'd rather talk about it as we go, but whenever. Just a little quote. I actually heard Vidal with ARDC use this quote the other day, which is actually an old Chinese proverb. But, you know, those who think something can't be done, I'll paraphrase, ought to just get out of the way of the people who are doing it. You'll have a lot of people when you're trying to do youth outreach and STEM outreach that say, you know, it's not worth the time, it's not worth the money. You know, we're wasting money trying to get kids. You wonder who those people are. Those people just need to step out of the way because it's obvious it's working. And I'm going to share a couple success stories with you here. So stuff that's new with ARRL education. On the air live. Has anybody in here seen one of the on the air live episodes yet? We now live stream once a month. It's the fourth Tuesday every month. Wayne Green, not that Wayne Green, but a different Wayne Green. He hosts it, does a wonderful job, and they're live. So you can ask questions as you go through it. You know, it's completely interactive. If you can't make it, not a big deal. We store all of those on the ARRL Learning Center, so you can always go back and see them. The only component you lose is the ability to ask questions live. Topics cover everything from stuff that's useful for new hams to stuff that like old hats like, you know, me and this guy over here still can learn stuff about. He started out with like some SSTV stuff for people that had never done SSTV. And he was so pumped. He came to work the next day. He's like, dude, I got like 3 SSTV QSOs with people that were in the class. So they're really cool. They're effective. And it's a good time. And you know, I know there's a bunch of stuff out there on YouTube. I did YouTube for a long time. That's how I paid for my program when I was still teaching school. But you can rest assured that this stuff has been vetted. And, you know, you watch 2 YouTube videos about one topic and you have 2 different answers. So you have to choose those things carefully. We're about to start live licensing classes. We're going to use the Gordon West books. As you may or may not know, we acquired all the rights to Gordo's material, and Gordo's a great dude. He's actually our national instructor. So we're using those books. Those will be probably quarterly to start out, and we'll end up stacking them. So we'll have technician classes a lot more often than we'll have general classes, and then extra classes is probably going to be more like an on-demand kind of thing. So, but we're going to have those. And again, those are going to be live and interactive. So you'll be in it uses Zoom, but it's through our learning center. So you can ask questions as you go. Again, there's a bunch of stuff on YouTube that you can do this. Like we have the Dave Cashler series. They're all great, don't get me wrong, but this is the ability just to ask questions as you go. So I know a lot of folks in here probably are already licensed. Some of us are already extras, so it doesn't really apply to you, but it kind of does. You can tell other people about them. So, you know, tell them, hey, you know, you can go there and get all the information you need. So the way these are going to work is they're actually, for people that aren't already in the league, that it's like $99. It includes membership and the book. So it's like a bundle price. You end up saving like, I forget, the bean counters told me it's like $28 or something like that. Teachers Institute, this one's big. We have expanded that from, I started at the league about 3.5 years ago. They were doing 2 of these a year. They were lucky to get 10 to 15 teachers each time. We're up to, I think we're going to actually get 16 this year. So I've also started doing them remotely. We have them all across the country. I've got, well, it's a separate slide, so I don't want to spoil my shebang. The little QSO map, those are the people who have been here for the last 2 years. That's not even the last 3 years. That's just over the last 2 years. Those of you who still need to work Alaska, we got them. We're still working on Hawaii, though. I think I'm getting that person this year. So we're also looking at ways to possibly make that go more international. We're bringing in a teacher from Panama this year. Because of the way we're funded, we have to do it a little differently. We have to go through IARU for that because your TI money goes to US-based teachers. And it is completely donor funded. This is one of those things that you'll hear kind of different varieties of information about. Teachers Institute is 100% donor funded. It does not come from the general fund. It doesn't come from your dues money. It comes from individual donors who believe in what we're trying to do and give money to do that. So everything down to the salaries of people in the education department, myself included, we prorate those salaries. So if I spend 18 hours one week on TI stuff, 18 hours of my salary comes out of that fund, so that it's completely donor funded. I know there's some misunderstandings out there about some people say, no, it comes from here. No, it is 100% donor funded. So thank you for that. If you guys are donors, thank you. If you're not, Kevin Beal's over at the booth over there. He'd be more than happy to help you become one, and I would love you to death. Like I said, we're taking it on the road. We have Teachers Institutes in Kilgore, Texas this year, Lake Charles, Louisiana. So we already had one on Staten Island, New York, and we're lucky to have Ed Wilson, the Hudson Division Director here. He helped arrange that. And we've just formed a partnership with Johns Hopkins University, which is huge. They're going to let us come back. It sounds like we can come back a couple times a year, and they're actually doing a lot of the legwork for us. They've got a STEM outreach center, so they're bringing in teachers for us. They're providing the facility, and we get to be a part of their program. We're doing several of these this year at headquarters also. We just completed a brand new classroom, or it should be completed hopefully by the time I get back, where it's a modern learning space for them. It's got, big screen TVs for them to learn off of. Anybody ever been to headquarters before? So we were teaching Teachers Institute in a conference room with a 24-foot long conference table and trying to cram in as many teachers as we could fit. Well, we give them a lot of stuff. We give them $1,300 worth of equipment. So when they start stacking the equipment up, there's no room for anything, so we finally got the board to agree, this is really going somewhere. So they completely, unanimously, if I remember correctly, right? Unanimously agreed to get behind this and renovate that space. So we've updated the content of Teachers Institute as well. So we've kind of rearranged a few things. Some of the equipment they get, every teacher leaves with a Yaesu FT70. They leave with a Redivis. I forget the model number, but it's a dupe of that Quansheng radio. They get a Zoom spot. So if you see Jim in here at the Zoom spot booth, tell him thank you, because he gives us a heck of a deal on those Zoom spots. It's a good enough deal. I'm not allowed to tell you how good of a deal it is. They get an electronics kit. They get a directional antenna and more. And we've also set up a Yaesu Fusion reflector just for schools. So with that Zoom spot and that FT70, what we're doing is schools around the country have a little Zoom spot sitting in there. So when a kid wants to talk to another kid somewhere, they can pick up the FT70, key up on that reflector, and then they're talking to kids across the country. It's still in its infancy. We have, 7 or 8 teachers that are on it right now from last year. We're going to go through about 200 teachers this year, so we expect it to really grow. I forgot to mention. We are hoping, like I said, we're doing 16 this year, it looks like, and we're hoping to double that number for next year. So it's a good thing I have no hair, because I'm already pulling it out doing 16 of them. So 32 of them is going to get ugly. We're going to have to draft Ed. We've also created TI electives. After completing TI1, they can go to remote sensors and data gathering. That's using microcontrollers and computer coding to deploy, think like buoys. You throw a buoy in a swamp or in the ocean. It'll measure water conditions and air conditions. And then it transmits that back using APRS. So, the kids, especially if they live near a body of water, although people are using them now for beehives, which I didn't even think about. And they were like, oh, I can monitor my beehives this way. They stick a little solar charger on it and they do stuff like that. So and actually a kid came up with that idea. TI Space and radio astronomy, satellites, ISS, etc. We have a budding partnership with the Haystack. Welcome us into their facility as well. They give us the tour. They learn things like radio astronomy, radio Jove. They're building horn antennas, learning how to work satellites and stuff like that. TI balloons and Pico balloons. In fact, we have Bill Brown over here, who is the grandfather, of ballooning. We're actually going to launch a balloon. Yesterday, the wind conditions weren't agreeable for us to launch a balloon for a bunch of kids. So today we're going to launch a balloon for some kids, and so they can monitor it. There's a ton of stuff you can do with this. If you look at, I've actually got a video. Or not. Maybe. Have to hit the play. There we go. So when you watch it, you'll see that all these little lines and stuff are moving, showing wind speed, and the kid can adjust the altitude. So what we're doing is we're teaching teachers to get kids to track their balloon. They'll know the position because it's transmitting its GPS location. Sorry, that was me zooming badly. And then they get to the altitude they think the balloon's going to be at in the morning or overnight, and they have to start making predictions as to where they think that balloon is going to be in the morning because there are no batteries on them. They go to sleep at night. So the kid leaves school at 3 o'clock or whatever. If he's smart, he looks right before the balloon goes to sleep to make his predictions. They make the predictions, submit it to the teacher online on Google Classroom or something like that. Then they have to guess or predict where they think it's going to end up. So, you can see sometimes it's a little easier than others. When you get out towards some of these areas where you get like diverging winds and whatnot. And then the cool part is when kids don't get it right, then they have to start making, analyzing why they missed it. So Bill's got an example of one of the trackers that you can use. That goes for schools. What do you get for that, Bill? 160? Yeah, so that thing is completely packaged up. You just stick a balloon on it and let it go. And if you want to see one of those, we'll do that in a minute. So, but you can see that. And the kids, some of these balloons stay up for a year. Yeah, some of them go around the world. What's the record for one of your balloons making it around the world? How many times? 8? 10 times around the world. So from a teaching standpoint, what's happening is these kids are going to bed having made their predictions. They're waking up in the morning, and the very first thing they're looking at is their phone, but not just like check their Instagram. They're looking to see if the balloon's awake yet, to see if they were right. Correct, yeah, it's just out there. Anybody can look at it. So there are some websites that you can do. What are some of those sites that we use? We use, we have a custom one for our kids. It's u4b.live. But there's a bunch of them that are out there. If you come by the booth, I'll get them all for you. But you can monitor the balloon so anybody else can. So yeah, if you're in a classroom and you didn't launch the balloon, you can still use some of these balloons as a teaching tool. The only thing that can get in the way of most people, because it's really affordable, is helium. Sometimes it can be difficult for schools to get that stuff, but helium sometimes. But just to monitor it, you can do that for free, and the kids can do the same activity. They don't quite have the same vested interest because they didn't build it and launch it, but you can still do it. And Bill's holding up
How much is that thing?
You can ship it to me, and I know a guy. So, and that's where we did it. For headquarters, we just bought 2 canisters at Airgas, but that's kind of difficult for some schools. But this is proving to be a huge teaching tool, and schools are loving it. Kids are learning geography, they're learning wind speed, they're analyzing temperature at different altitudes, because the balloon they have to predict storms. If it hits a storm, what's it going to do? We had one that we launched about a year ago, and we launched it, and it was doing great. It was on its way to we were hoping it would actually fly over Cuba because I was curious as to what would happen. And unfortunately, it hit a storm and shot up to 60,000 feet, which was too much. And it developed a leak, and it crashed off of Key West. So maybe. Yeah. This is a big one. We're building in the process of building a complete STEM curriculum initially geared for grades 6 through 8. So if you know any teachers, a lot of us know teachers that are in schools, they're like, I want to be able to do some of this, but I don't know where to start. This is also going to be completely free. It is completely standards based. Everything in this, if you know anything about teaching, you're not going to be allowed to teach it in school if you can't tie it to a standard somewhere. And so everything that's in this is completely and totally standards based. We have 8 complete units. It's 80 lessons. Things ranging from exploring radio, introduction to waves and frequencies, electronics, programming, and then balloons, and then the space communication stuff. If you want to see a sample of some of this, we have some of that stuff over at the booth. But in fact, Drew is the school administrator, and he can tell you if it's not tied to a standard, your odds of being able to teach it in a classroom are pretty much nil. So that was why we spent a lot of time and a lot of money to get this thing built and to make sure it's tied and correlated to standards. So if you want to take a look at that, I have some sample lessons, and I also have what we call a scope and sequence that tells you the order they go in and what standards they address. The goal there is so that when a teacher wants to do something like this, they can basically copy and paste these parts out of it into whatever lesson plan template their principal requires, and then they're running. Everything else is here. It's all online. It's importable into any school learning management system. They can start assigning it out to kids. Kids can watch the videos. They can start learning this stuff and going from there. So it's great for both teachers who are familiar with radio and for those who might not be yet. They're just getting their feet wet, and you want to tell them, hey, look at this. And once they get hooked, then you can bring them to TI the next year. So for some reason, my Delio is not working anymore. I'm sorry? So the entire curriculum will be on the Learning Center. It's scheduled right now to be released on August 1st. It's been a race to try to get it done in time for the next school year. But it should be out August 1st, which is in time for schools in the South and plenty of time for schools up north. School down south starts like August 4th or something like that. Or I don't know, when does it start here in Ohio? Okay, so you have a little more time, but that was the whole goal, was to get it out in time so there's time for them to get it, because you do have to import it. It's not a difficult process to import it into the learning management system, but the idea is I want it completely ready so that when a teacher's in a STEM class or something, it's just a sign and go. We're also building a model school program. We have one of them on Staten Island, New York. Everton has licensed 399 students in the last 2 years. We're going down in June sometime. Whoops, watch out for that. We're going down in June sometime to break the 400 mark. He's got, I'm guessing, another 100 kids ready. The important thing to note here is this is not just a license factory. Now, I'm not ignorant. I know not every one of these kids is going to stay in radio forever. But we've got kids there that are doing sea perch programs like underwater robots and stuff, and they're using radio to transmit the images. We've got kids that are building solar cars, and they've already said, we're not going to win any solar car races because it's going to be a rolling station, and they're going to have an amplifier in it. So they're connecting other areas to this interest in doing it. So we've also got Harbor Creek, Erie, Pennsylvania, is where Drew's from. Anybody see the Today Show last year? That's the guy right there. So he came through TI 3 years ago now. TI1 was 3 years ago now. He came through. We worked, gosh, he and Joe Karsha spent I don't know how much time working on antenna stuff to get stuff designed for the roof. And the thing, and everybody knows what an ARIS contact is, right, with the space station. Those are really cool, don't get me wrong. But most of the time, in fact, almost all of the time, they are run by old guys like us. The factor with his is every single bit of that was run by kids. So every bit of it. Like, they were running coax, they were doing antenna work. I've got some great pictures on some bookmarks of his kids in the snow, like doing antenna work on the roof of the school. They ran the radios, both the primary and the secondary. That was all kids. In fact, did I ever tell you this, Drew? Well, we were in the last 45 minutes. I went out there for this contact. 45 minutes before the contact, one of the kids, and I don't remember which one, said, oh, look, there's a satellite pass coming. Let's work it. And they reconfigured the radio to work the satellite. And I was like, not a good idea, guys. What if something goes, this is like, we got the press coming. I mean, NBC is going to be here. And they're like, no, we're good, we're good, we're good. And they work the satellite, and then they put it back on, set it up again. I was like, you know, I mean, us old guys are like, no, you're not going to touch it. They're like, no, we got it. And they did, and it went off beautifully. I mean, it was, you know, tears in the eyes and everything. It was amazing. So, and then we're building another one in Chicago, Illinois. So this is another teacher. He's another guy with a great haircut. And he's primarily focusing at the beginning of portable operating stuff just because of some of the limits. It's in a Catholic school, and he's having some difficulty getting antennas, which is okay because his principal's like, just go outside. And so they go outside and they do some of that stuff. One of the things I want to tell you is if you know a school that's doing awesome stuff already, send them my way. Because, you know, we'd love to have more of these schools where we can easily share success stories. The other benefit of being a model school is I can throw some extra resources at it. So like Everton on Staten Island, his kids were getting interested in mesh chastic devices. So I hopped a train down, Ed picked me up, and he and I took 30 or so mesh chastic devices down to them so they can nerd out with it. Then we tested like 150 kids. So, you know, that's the kind of ability that we have once we start getting these relationships with some of these schools doing cool stuff. We're also launching a STEM learning series. If you've been by the booth, you saw Max. We hired Max about 3.5 months ago. What we're doing here is we're building amateur radio licensing classes, I guess, for lack of a better word, without dealing with the questions themselves. He's not specifically saying, you know, any question numbers in the videos. And the idea here is so these are evergreen. He's teaching the actual content of, you know, the different things for a technician license. And then we're just linking out to question pools from the current question pool because the questions change, but the content stays the content. You know, sometimes we have to maybe update it if they add something to it. But the idea is I want people to be able to use these over, you know, several years. If you look, you'll notice Max looks really young. That's why we're using Max. Because if we want to reach kids and we want kids to be interested, we don't want a bunch of us on the screen doing it. Kids listen to kids. So all these success programs we're having at schools, the teachers are just facilitating discussions. They're not directly teaching most of this stuff. You know, they might introduce stuff, but the real learning happens once the kids are sitting together and doing stuff. You know, I'll go back to Drew's school. When I got there on Sunday, I think is when I got there, the day before. I got there in the afternoon, and I walked in. And yeah, it was a Sunday because I was marveling over the fact that so many kids were at school on a Sunday. I got there, and I walked in, and he showed me the shack. And when I got up there, you expected kids to be working on the ISS stuff, but he had kids in there like doing Arduino program. I mean, they were at school on a Sunday doing work because they were interested in doing it. So that's a win. So anytime you can get a kid that's like, yeah, let's see, I can stay at home and play Fortnite. I can go do some Arduino stuff up at the school because, you know, Mr. Mortenson's up there. That's when you know you're winning. So, but these are going to start rolling out really soon. He's filmed the intros to each unit, and we're filming them over time. He's also going to film, anybody in here into contesting? Max is into contesting. If you know Max he's done some youth contesting stuff. He was at the contest dinner, I guess, last night and whatnot. He's also filming a youth-oriented intro to contesting series where it's like, here's what contesting is, gives them some basic tips on how to configure things to make them more successful. But then he's also going to go through in each contest as it's coming out, he's going to film a video specific to that contest. So he can say, see, here are some of the things with this contest. Here are some tips that will help you be successful. Here's some of the things you need to make sure you don't do. You know, he's done it. You know, I know he looks really young, but he's been contesting for 4 or 5 years now. So he knows something, you know, some about like what frequencies tend to work better, what areas. He knows how to get into I mean, he's got a lot of knowledge that we can use. And so he's filming those. So as each individual contests come up, he's going to film another video 6 weeks or so ahead of time to give those kids time to kind of digest it and get ready for it. How'd the balloon launch go? Or parachute jump? Sweet. So I was going to take us outside to watch a parachute jump. We had a guy jump out of an airplane and talk to a bunch of kids, but so, also, what was I? Contesting. So that's that. We're also working with the contesting. As far as a lot of contests don't have what they call youth overlays for youth categories. There's a bunch of them that do, or some that do, but most of them don't. So we're trying to get more contests to have that youth category, because when a kid feels like a second-class citizen doing something, they're not going to stay doing it. You know, there's no way a 15-year-old kid at Harbor Creek High School can compete with a Craig Thompson. You know, I mean, it just can't happen. You can't do it. So we're trying to create categories where these kids can still play with the big boys and be successful and win in their category. So we also run a school testing program. So for schools that have kids that are ready to be tested, all they have to do is drop us an email. Drew just did that last week, maybe 2 weeks, whenever it was. Send us an email, say, hey, I've got a kid, I've got 8 kids, or in Everton's case, I've got 247. Can we run a testing session? We'll hop on Zoom and we'll set up a remote testing session. We have one of the people in the room that's a VE. The other 2 of us are watching from one side. So we got one side seeing the screen, and we're monitoring that test, and we're testing these kids completely free. So, and it's the advantage to this is actually a lesson I learned from when I was in school. I had my first about 30-ish or so kids ready to take the test, and an ice storm hit. So they couldn't take the test that day. Well, the local club, and they were nice folks, but you know, they weren't quick to reschedule anything. And they're like, well, we can do it in about 6 weeks. And I was like, 6 weeks? These kids are like off to something else in 6 weeks. So at the time, like I said, I had a YouTube channel that was supporting some of my programs. And one of the guys that was watching my videos was with one of the VECs that was doing remote testing and said, dude, I can do it tomorrow. And I was like, okay, what do you need? He goes, don't worry, I got it. We tested all those kids the next day. So that was kind of my inspiration for starting this program. It can be a headache sometimes because, you know, we're in the middle of something and we get an email that says, I got 4 kids. Can you do it now? But I'll take a headache to get 4 more kids. So, so we're doing that. Like I said, it's completely free. This is in cooperation with the VEC. If you have not seen Maria and you have questions about the VEC stuff, she's actually here this year. They have a program. A lot of people think it's a grant program where we got money from somebody to do this. This just comes out of our budget, where every kid who takes a test can get that $35 FCC license fee back. So they just submit it, we send them the money back. So, and that's something that is coming from your member dollars, so thank you for that. The YouTube community has shown huge interest in what we're doing. In the last year alone, they raised $41,000 for the TI program. Over the last 2 years, it's about $72,000 that they've raised for TI. To do some quick math for you, that is 2 weeks of Teachers Institute, and we pay for everything on Teachers Institute. We pay their airfare, we pay their hotel, we give them the equipment, everything is included there. So, you know, whether you're a YouTube fan or not, if you see, especially some of the bigger ones like Josh, Ham Radio Crash Course, and Mike, Ham Radio Tube, throw them a quick thank you because they spend a lot of time and a lot of effort trying to help us grow. So I know YouTube's not for everybody, but some of these guys are doing a lot to help us. We're also working on partnerships with groups like Civil Air Patrol, and we're trying to get on a higher level with Scouts where we can start having customized TI sort of sessions for those groups. You know, Civil Air Patrol's reached out to me recently and they're like, hey, I've heard about this. What can we do to buddy up? So we're going to have those as well. The ARRL Foundation awards somewhere around the $1 million mark in scholarships every year. I think last year was like 780,000 or something like that. This year, I think, is closer to the $1 million mark. And the only requirement that there is to apply for that is they have to be a ham. So if they have their license, they can apply. Now, I'll tell you right now, the odds of getting a scholarship get better the more engaged they are. So, you know, if you've got a kid who's like, they got their license in 6th grade and they don't ever do anything with it, maybe they're not getting one. But if you've got kids like, you know, on Staten Island or at Harbor Creek where these kids are doing stuff, I mean, I had conversations with Drew's kids after all the news left, and we're talking about what's next. They're like, yeah, the ISS was cool, but now we want to hit the moon. It's like, okay. So they want to do EME. And with these kids, I won't be shocked at all if they're like, I wonder if this will work with Mars. You know, it's turn it to Mars and see if you can do that. So that's the kind of inspiration we want with these things. And those are the kind of kids that are getting some of these scholarships. And I already mentioned the classroom facility at headquarters. It is almost done. I'm hoping it's done by the time I get there because I have a TI in like 2 weeks. But it's getting close. And that should be about it. So any questions? I'm more than happy to answer them. Yes. Yes, I have all the curriculum stuff at the ARRL booth if you want to see that. All right, well, that's all I got then. So thank you. Like I said, everything that we do is donor funded, so I cannot thank you enough. So thank you very much. Yeah, we've been talking with some of the captains about doing some, we have a couple of them coming up for our regular TI. And what we're looking at is a way to design a program that's more geared towards what they're doing. So basically, stand by us and what they know about us. Yeah, bro. With my card. Okay. I'll try to keep it. Yes, it's in the very early stages right now. So our Teachers Institute, where we fly people up to Connecticut, train them, give them a bunch of equipment to do this stuff. A lot of it is applicable to Cerebral Patrol, because it's stuff like, you know, radio directions, stuff like that. And so what we're trying to do is, Civil Air Patrol is a little different than a regular school. They don't necessarily need some of the lesson planning components and stuff like that. So I'm looking at a way to try to have a maybe more condensed version of what they require. And the idea is to get these kids that are doing Civil Air Patrol to realize, you know, radios are great. Especially you can get like a 20,000 foot antenna. Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Well, I'll give this to my friend Michael. Perfect. Okay, thanks.
Can I get what your card?
Yeah.
I'm not a teacher, but what happened is one of the, we tried to deal with the schools. One of the schools got a hold of us and we talked to her quite a while. She went like third, fourth graders and we settled on seventh graders. We went in and did a couple presentations with them and that's cool stuff, but we're not going, we're doing this stuff. It's like we're grappling, like, you know, she said, well, maybe we'll do it again next year. We're going, we've got to figure this out because, you know, we showed them FT8 and all around across the cool. We had them play with the Morse code, it was hands-on. And we're just grappling with what can we do better? And I figured I saw this, I thought, you know, maybe you guys can help us figure this out.
Yeah, so
We're not teachers, but
so one of the things that we're doing, well, at the booth, you've been by the booth, we've got a bunch of kids that are building CW booths.
yeah, now that's
So
that's
if
one
they
of the questions from.
if they build it, then they're a lot more interested in using it.
They actually build a little bit more.
Yeah, so we 3D printed, and then, well, they didn't build the oscillator, they built the little key.
Oh, gee,
So-
that's fine.
So if you want to come by the booth, I'll show you what we're doing with that.
Okay.
But it's, then you get to kind of the rest of the student stuff like that. They realize that's
We
just
knew
it.
it had to be hands-on. And I got a couple kids come up and play with the Morse code key with my oscillator, and the kids were interested in that.
Yeah, they're interested, but they're like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden they've got the tool that they built to do it, and you can show them how to, you know, and an easy add-on project that is, hey, look, you built this successfully. Here's an oscillator kit.
Now, the resource personnel like this, they're trying to work with school, and I get hold of a teacher, she's been contacted, or actually resources that.
Yeah, if you have the teacher contact me, I'm more than happy.
Okay, so the teacher has the contact to get the resources.
Yeah, and then,
Because I mean, she heard about ham radio. I thought, well, let's have these guys in it.
but
We
you're,
covered too much. We covered
that's
stuff.
just
like-
it. It tends to be,
It was a Catholic.
we try to put too much.
Yeah.
Right. And the reality is, I mean, I'm guilty of it. I did it yesterday for youth program. I scheduled way too much. Yeah. And I ran out of time.
That's what it is, right?
And,
You gotta cut it.
and yeah, let them really, you know, we can hit a lot of things at the surface level, or you can hit a couple things and go really deep. And we need to be get better at going really deep.
Take a couple of two to think. I think it's a progress work and the teacher, you know, it's like the kids started going to sleep. Well, I mean, it was, you know, they were very attentive to something read, but man, that was like the best possible environment it could have been, and yet it's still, I'm walking away going, we have to do better.
Yeah, and the nice thing about like building the key, if you've got a 3D printer, it's cheap.
Oh, they have 3D printers.
It's cheap. I printed these, I actually used K6 ARK, he's a YouTuber, and I used one of his STL files for the key.
You're over in this building right over here.
We're in that building, number 2, building 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's not where I turned the.
No, it's,
Oh,
we're
okay.
over there by ICOM and whatnot.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad I was in the wrong place.
But yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
This was all the business part. I'm from Springfield, Illinois.
One of our middle schools, Lincoln Magnet School, has been selected for an Eris contest.
Okay.
And so, like you said, neat, cool. Where do we go from here? So
That's my only, that's my
It's-
only,
it's a flash in the pan.
that's it. It's a one and done.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a great program.
Yeah.
But there needs to be a follow-up.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what,
And so, I figured if I can get this to, so the cool thing is our club president actually works for the Illinois State Board of Education. But, it's something totally different. And so the school reached out to the local club because they need the ham affiliation
Yeah.
for that. And we're trying to get our, one of our local guys that did a lot of satellite stuff actually do this live on site instead of the telebridge.
yeah, that's the other thing.
Because, live on
It's
site.
still cool to be able to talk from that,
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, but no.
But there's something to be said that,
Yeah.
for the fact that they can go out, they can see it, they can touch it, that's what's cool.
This, the infrastructure right here, that's.
Yeah.
And, as opposed to.
Like we had for our youth rally yesterday, we had a satellite demo,
Mhm.
and so we went over and asked them, why do I need to do something when they do an amazing job with it?
Right.
And so we went over to AMSA. Last year we did the same thing and they had an auto check. Which was good. But this year,
Sure, the
they did
handheld.
handheld it.
Sweet.
Which was amazing for kids.
Yeah.
They were like, look, you can do this for next.
Yeah.
You can grab stuff. You can open it.
Yeah.
And build your own yacht.
Just steal one of Dad's tape
Yeah.
and cut it up.
And you can do this at home for
Oh, yeah.
under $50.
Yep. Yep.
And a lot of times we get stuck with, they're gonna love this big sanction. And they think it's cool, but they also think it's.
Yeah, yeah. Or if I had that $1,000, I'd just dump it into the next box and your headset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they haven't been busy by the subway. Right. Now you've got kids, like you see this right here.
Yeah.
That kid was in a youth rally yesterday, and sent they for the booth.
Yeah.
This is our stuff. You get a youth rally yesterday. Now he's back because we're about to launch a balloon.
Yeah.
And so we got it. He's like, okay.
Yeah.
So, is he an extra? You got a signature. But we've got the.
You gotta get them started somewhere.
We've got the hook set up inside, but now all of a sudden, business seems to me, especially if you get away with passing this stuff. You ask him to be a motivator, I can't do this stuff.
Right.
That's what it is.
I'm keeping it on. See, I want to survive. Okay.
Great.
So I'm looking through the well-being organization.
Okay.
Professional organization is
Okay.
all around the world. So like energized, we always had education foundation. So these are all fully supported in college. It's giving out scholarships for kids that are in college.
Yeah, so. So we have a lot of donors that give to scholarships, and not, I don't want to miss on scholarships are great. But if I have somebody who has $10,000 in it, they want to get a scholarship, if they give it to our education fund, where we can train teachers with it, one scholarship touches exactly one kid.
Yeah, that's
One teacher touches.
So we're, it's called we're association, so like a professional group and that's not. Then our education group. Actually, to our teachers, they say a lot of lots.
That's it. You help one small kid, whereas if I put a teacher in here, they teach 75 years a year. So they could be TI. We've been the TI and our TI so we've invested so, yeah, but this guy, donors have invested each $1,000 on him. That's far surpassed the donor and scholarship. So have you considered doing something like instead supporting, to have like a teacher kind of thing?
We went to one movie so far, we're another one, one movie.
Yeah, in fact, if you want to walk over to the other building, the guy over there that's in charge of that stuff, Kevin Beal, I'd love to find a way to partner. Those are the kind of teachers we're looking for, those teachers that are kids. And so maybe we can find a way to partner up and we can serve as some of the education for some of the kids.
Association, the National Teachers Society. Anyway, it's like I said, we've been in the industry, we've been around for 65 years. Our education foundation. All we did that, what kind of good grades, like $2,500 Ohio State.
Yeah, see, we
Ohio
had,
State is the biggest industry. Also, what happens, and you get, well, really sure. I'll work for it since three.
so that's what I'm saying is we could possibly benefit being a part of it. Yeah, try to really have it too. So, yeah, I'll head over and watch. I can watch stuff. I'm getting old.
I'm debating. Unless it gets the blue screen to death for the third time this morning.
Oh, no, that would be good.
Huh?
That would be, we already saw one. But I'm also not really wanting to do it. Hey, how's it going? Hey. Guess what? You're doing for business. I think I'm gonna do it with my laptop.
Well, hello. Go ahead and get things started here. I wasn't planning on even using a microphone, but they told me they need it because I guess there is a live stream going. So welcome, and glad you're here this morning. Got a few updates on things going on, things coming up, things that have been happening. Happy to be here, and it's been a good week. I think I asked this kind of informally a minute ago. Anybody spend any money this week? Bought something, maybe even bought something you weren't planning on buying? Me. Bought something actually I was planning on buying in the next couple of months, but anyway, it was on sale here, so decided to go ahead and do it now. Want to welcome you all here, and first of all, I like to open and close with one statement that I want to tell all of you that are involved in any kind of MCOM work, volunteer work. Thank you for all you do for your communities and for amateur radio. The work you do around the country is it's valuable. Usually we're able to capture from our areas reporting and so on and so forth, at least somewhere between 13 and 25 million a year that we capture. That's just from the reports that come in. We could get our reporting up a little bit more from some of the sections. We probably double that. But it is valuable way more than monetarily. The work you all do to your communities and to the citizens, to the people that your friends and your neighbors is important. My background was in emergency management at the local level before I came to ARRL, and many times it goes unthought of and unappreciated, or unverbalized at least. But what you do is much more valuable to most of the agencies and organizations than even they realize in many cases. So if we've got any, well, I know we do. If we've got any of our section emergency coordinators or section managers, if y'all would stand up. We've got some. And then if we, you guys can have a seat. Next, local ECs, emergency coordinators in your local area. Any in the room? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Got one other in particular that I want to mention. And I didn't tell him I was going to do this, but Rick Palm, sitting here in the front row. Rick, thank you. Rick is many of you read Rick's work. Rick contributes or organizes or gets someone else to contribute and does a lot of work to the public service column every month in QST, and is also the one who puts together the Aries letter each month. So thank you, Rick, and for all the work you do. Glad to have you here this week, and all the way from the bright Florida world, after moving from Connecticut, after being at headquarters for several years, back a few years ago. Just want to talk about some updates of things that we've had happen, things that we've rolled out, things that we've tried to be working on over the last year or two. We do have 2 new MCOM courses out on learn.arl.org. Basic MCOM and intermediate MCOM. The old EC001 and EC016 courses, those ended end of life in April of 24. And so the basic and intermediate are available immediately. We are finalizing, finally, the Aries leadership course that is intended for ECs, even AECs if you choose to, SECs, DECs, so on and so forth, or someone intending or wishing to get into those roles. That course, the leadership course, will require approval from your section manager to complete that course simply an email from the section manager would suffice. And that's two reasons. It allows the section manager to somewhat vet the people that are taking the leadership courses. And remember, every position in a section is appointed by the section manager. It may be at the recommendation of an SEC, or it may be at the recommendation of someone else, but the official appointment comes from that section manager. So this gives them that opportunity with someone, particularly someone new that's wanting to get into it, to at least open that relationship and build that relationship and that rapport together with the two of them to move things forward. The advanced MCOM course we have put on hold. I got some news yesterday that may help with that. We've put it on hold because there is some work being done. I'm actually, through my role with SafeCom, as the ARL's appointed or representative on SafeCom, we have a working group right now that is working on some recommendations to CISA, to some changes to the Oxcom course. Not major changes, but some minor tweaks and changes. And most of that comes from the years they've started teaching the Oxcom course, from the instructors on, we really don't need this in this course, or we really want to add this to this course. So we're working with a lot of the instructors around the country on some things they want to add to and take out, as well as some of the SWCs, the statewide emergency coordinators, statewide interoperability coordinators, on some things they want to move into and incorporate into that course. The reason we've put ours on hold is depending on the changes that are wound up being made to the Oxcom course may cause us to really need to or look at some changes to our advanced MCOM course. We didn't want to roll out a course and then 6 months later say, time out, we're going to roll out another course. We'd rather wait, even if we have to wait an extra year, we would rather wait and roll out a course that is incorporating what they're doing. We were worried because some changes in the political scene that some of that work that we've been doing with SafeCom may be on delay. I've talked to our CISA liaison to that working group yesterday or Friday as he was here. And he assured me that probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to try to get back to work on that group again. So that with the SafeCom group should be moving forward, and hopefully within the next 6 months to a year, we can find out for sure what's going on with that. And once we know what's going on with that, then we can roll forward with our advanced course. So that's what's going on there. The Aries task book, if you haven't looked at it in a year or so, might be a good idea to look at it. The Aries task book that came out in April is the new task book that reflects the new courses. It doesn't reflect the EC001 or EC016. There are also, if you've paid attention to the old one, there are also a few changes. ICS training is required at level 1 now. So if you're going to be involved in areas, you need at least ICS 100 and 200. And I believe, anyway, there's some ICS training that is required in that course, or even at the basic level. Previously, we didn't require any ICS training until the second level. This is in reaction to aligning our courses and making our courses NIMS compliant, which is a necessity under Stafford Act for our served agencies to be able to count the hours that Aries works. So that's the need for those changes. And anyway, Wendy? Right. we're okay. We're okay with holding that portion up. We know that you're going to have to hold that. There's no way to complete that until that course is complete. So that portion is just on hold. You can complete everything else in the level 3. Just once that's done, once that course is completed, then you'll just roll it in then. Yes, that's correct. Good question. Thank you. We are also working on some minor updates to the Aries plan. The main update to that is it's currently the one that came out in 23 does still reflect the EC 001016. So that'll be coming out. Hopefully it'll be done in July. So hopefully by the end of July, we'll have that update to the Aries plan in and done and ready to go. 2024 was an exciting year. Really exciting for some of us. Aries groups around the country have been involved in a little bit of everything. We've had everything from wildfires in California, flooding, hurricanes, you name it, we've had it. And some of us have, about a year ago this week, spent the last year going through a cyber attack. So it's been a challenging year. And I think we're, at least on the cyber attack, we're at least on the backside beginning to really get some things back rolling. And that has been some of the delays to some of the things that we've been working on, is some of our, especially things centered around IT and that kind of stuff that's put us on hold. But this just it's not an all-inclusive list. It's just a list of some of the things that people have been involved in around the country. And it's definitely, as I mentioned earlier, definitely appreciated. There have been some lessons learned this year. One of the things we saw and we've had some conversations of is we definitely don't want to put all our eggs in one basket, so to speak. We don't necessarily want to be 100%, I'm here strictly to serve a government agency or an NGO or another group. We need to be diverse in what our capabilities and our functions could be during an event. We saw situations in North Carolina where really good hams did great things, weren't really even involved in an organization. But they did the right thing. They stepped up. They did what hams do and stepped up and provided a service that was needed. And through that, we have seen that we definitely want to continue. One of the things that one of our old long-term logos has been when all else fails. In this day and age, when all else fails in most disasters, is kind of like 6th, 7th, 8th on the list, or we're about 6th or 7th or 8th on the list of who's going to get called. But what was needed during Hurricane Helene was when all else fails. So it's definitely not something you need to forget. And it's not something that we just need to say, we don't need it anymore. It can go away. There was a lot of traffic handling during Helene. NTS did a lot of health and welfare traffic. There are people out there that say, NTS is dead. It needs to go away. Proved this year that's not the case. There's still a place for all aspects of amateur radio. And even as the hobby goes, I enjoy the fact of the hobby that there are things in amateur radio that I'm not interested in. But there's a lot of other things that I am interested in. I've seen once a slow scan TV transmission. I think it's cool, but it's not something I want to do. But there's a whole community that's 80% of what they do. That's great. To me, that's one of the greatest things about this hobby that is so important, is understanding that just because this person's interested in this doesn't mean they're wrong. It means they're interested in a hugely vast hobby that has something in it for everyone. And I still maintain that with our emergency communications world. There is something for everyone. Maybe you're to the point that you can't be deployed out in a disaster zone, but you could sit at home and provide relays and traffic for that, or provide health and welfare traffic, or provide whatever. There's something for anyone that wants to get involved. And we need to be open to new people and give them an environment that they can make mistakes while they're learning. And I think sometimes any of you that have heard me speak before have heard me talk about sometimes we're not great communicators. The fact that we are communicators doesn't necessarily mean we communicate very well. And I'm talking about two different forms of communications here. But it's important to realize that the first time somebody jumps on a repeater for the very first time in their life and they say 10-4 at the end of their transmission, and somebody jumps on and says, "How dare you say 10-4? You can't do that." Guess what? They're done. They'll never key up again. You had somebody right there that was let's just say a younger person who was eager, willing, capable, and ready to be a great MCOM operator, to be a great ham, and to inspire and grow youth or younger people into the hobby, and you just turned them off. You just sent them packing. They're done. And it only takes once. It only takes one transmission to kill that hobby or that person in the hobby. So there again is another one of our aspects of how important it is to build relationships and to build those relationships with hams within our own communities. One of the things that we work on very hard at my level is building relationships at the national level with other organizations. It's primarily about advocating for you all at the local levels. There's a group of Mars folks back here in the back. Paul, you guys stand up back there. I would. Paul English and others from Army and Air Force Mars. And I met, tell me your name again. I know we met yesterday. Dave. Thanks, Dave. I went completely blank. Just as you and Paul stood up, and I said Paul, and I'm going, and anyway, old age, sorry. But anyway, we've got Army, the two national leaders of Army and Air Force Mars here this morning. I've already mentioned, had people from CISA here on Friday that I was able to spend some time with, that I work with on a regular basis. We've had people from FEMA here this week. Unofficially, they're here on their own, but it's people that I've worked with. One of our CISA, our primary CISA rep, that's our primary, that's leading this working group for the SafeCom updates, is actually the EC for his county in Virginia. He's an ARRL member. He's been an EC for a number of years, and he's one of us. He's an active ham. He's on the air on a regular basis. And it's important to build those relationships and know who we've got that we can call when we need it. And that's one of the things that I have worked hard on in the 3.5 years I've been at headquarters, is to try to really build those relationships and build the rapport with our federal partners that I have to work with on a regular basis. This year's an exciting year. We've had, how many of you have been by the booth and seen some stickers we had that we were giving out the first day and a half? We're really excited this year for the 90th year of Aries, and it's hard to believe it's been 90 years. If you want some of these, somebody email me. We'll see what we can do to get you some. We're going to have some, I think we're going to have some available for sale in the store also. But we're happy to be celebrating the 90 years. And for most of the rest of this presentation, I want to talk about the 3 bullets that we're kind of working on here with ready, responsive, and resilient, and why we think it's important that we remember those. Responsive, and I just copied the definition, so I'm going to read. Inclined to act or respond readily or without hesitation. That's, I really don't, this one is all of any of them is the one I have the least need probably to expound on. It's probably the one that's the most understood because we know what we need to do to respond. Now, that being said, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to respond without somebody needing us to respond, because we never want to encourage anyone to self-deploy. But to be responsive to the needs requires us to seek the training and have the skills for whatever it is we're responding to do. And that being said, maybe what is needed is not necessarily keying up and talking on the radio. There may be other communications, technical, or other needs that a served agency or a non-government organization or another partner that we may be working with may be what they need. We've got a lot of technical skills within this hobby. And I keep saying hobby because the amateur community as a whole is a hobby. But when we're responding or evolving or working in a disaster, the hobby hat comes on and it becomes a job. Even though we're not getting paid for it, it's still a job because it's a responsibility. The training has to be taken seriously. The role of the emergency communicator has to be take responsibility and has to be taken seriously. So to be responsive, you've got to be ready. Resilient, tending to recover from how did I miss? There we go. Ready. I went backwards. I somehow skipped ready a minute ago. Semper paratus, always ready. To be prepared for an event, task, or activity, including mind, body, spirit, and social fitness. It's kind of what I was just talking about with response, is you've got to be ready to respond before you can respond. That was what threw me off on that responsive. They got out of order here, and I was like, wait a minute. Anyway, sorry, guys. But you've got to be ready before you respond. Someone showing up and going, I've never done WinLink before. How do I do WinLink? And you're needing to do WinLink, and I'm just using this as an example. How do I do WinLink? That's not the time to be training and learning how to do WinLink or set up WinLink. What do you mean? What do you mean this weather station's, I need to report what this weather station's telling me? You know, unless you've got one of the really good ones, which by the way, they've got it right across here. There are some things in there to read. Hey, sit here and watch this radar and let us know what you're seeing. How many of you can sit down in front of even a Gibson Ridge or one of the free radar sources and tell you what the wind velocity is without spending a little time on it to learn what you're looking at? Or to at least learn that to watch how fast the wind's blowing, you need to switch over to the velocity screen rather than the reflectivity screen, because reflectivity doesn't show you how fast anything's moving other than how much rain there is. So I had that happen, had a gentleman do that with me one time. He's going, look how fast that wind is. I said, you're looking at the rain. He said, what are you talking about? I switched over to the velocity and I said, that's how fast the wind is. And he goes, whoa. He didn't even know that screen existed. Light came on really quick. So you've got to be ready for these things. You've got to have the training and some skills. But remember, and I say this to remind you, remember, most of you all have skills that can benefit who you're working with that aren't necessarily your radio ability. I had a group, and some of you have heard me say this before because I talk about it regularly. When I was county emergency manager, I had a group of 4 women who volunteered after a tornado to activate our phone bank. We had set up with our county drops with 4 phones, had numbers assigned to them, and we could advertise, call this number, and they weren't active all the time. They weren't plugged in, they weren't in place. They stay stored, but they could come out and be up and running within 30 minutes most of the time. They volunteered after this one event. They said, can we do that for us? Now, these were all some of my hams. This was part of my areas group. They said, can we help you with this? These guys have got all this covered. Is there anything else we can help you with? And I said, we need help with the phone bank. We had like 8 more disasters over the next 6 or 7 years. They just, Josh, you need the phone bank? Yep. Activate the phone bank. And they come in and activate the phone bank for us without having to work anything. They love doing it because then they were talking to the public. They were taking calls from the public. They were helping, and they were providing a communication skill that we needed. And this is going to get me in trouble, but these women knew how to talk on the phone. Okay? They knew how to talk on the phone. But the key was, all 4 of them are some of the nicest people I ever met in my life. And the key was, they were nice, they were listening, and sometimes they were that kind voice on the phone that person that just went through that tornado needed to talk to. And they took phone calls, folks, that literally they spent 15 minutes just listening to them. But the fact that they did what was needed to be done, happily volunteered to do it, and once they found their niche, they're like, boom, we're in. A couple of them, their husbands were working in the comms room, and they're like, hey, he's here. What can I do? I want to do more. That can apply to anything. That can apply to anybody. So just be open to and receptive to, hey, what can we do? And I think in many cases, we walk into a served agency or we walk into an organization and say, here's what I'm doing for you, or here's what I'm going to do for you. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to get, no, we've got it handled. We don't need your help. Where if you'd have walked in and said, hey, we've got this group, we're capable of a few things. What do you need? Is there something that you have found is a shortcoming? Is there a way we can help you fill a niche? You get that door open. Once you get that door open, then you can go, okay, well, did you know we can send email over the radio? What? You can do what? Without the internet? Yeah. You're kidding. Did you know we can do video over our amateur radio Arden network? Do what? You want streaming video from a scene? Yeah. We can do that. There's a group in a small state in northern U.S. that's got trailers that are built out that carries the Arden network, carries the videos, and provides all of that over a wide area. Some of y'all have heard of them, are familiar with them. It's amazing what hams can come up with and provide. One of the things we hope to do in the near future is to have kind of a melting pot of this is working for us, this is working for us, this is working for us. We tried this didn't work, here's why it didn't work. That kind of thing that can be shared more among the community. Because one of the lessons learned, if you remember that in the lessons learned page a minute ago, was we need more sharing among our organizations, among the local levels. Because a lot of the groups aren't doing something just because they hadn't thought of it. Not because they're not capable, they just hadn't thought of it. Where if they hear it from somebody else, they might be able to do it. And resilient. we as a community of hams by instinct are somewhat resilient. What we set up, how we do things, and the way we prepare for and are able to adapt and overcome, so to speak, is part of what makes us as hams as valuable as what we are. And I think once you can show that resiliency and that capability of, oh, wow, that didn't work. Hang on, let me do this. Oh, there we go. This is working. You know, could be as simple as I can't get through on 20 meters. Let me try 40. Oh, there they are. Boom. You know, it's gotten dark. Time to switch to 40 meters, you know, if it's that simple. It's all about being ready and adapting and overcoming, but all of it really comes back and ties to the readiness. Because the more ready you are, the more trained, the more skill you've got, will benefit you and benefit your community in your training and so on. I have you know, lots of friends in different areas of the amateur radio community, and it's funny to watch contesters say, oh, that's just one of those MCOM guys. Or vice versa, contesters go, MCOM folks go, they're just interested in contesting. Let me throw something at you. You know who some of the best traffic or net control people are? Contesters. They're used to pulling it out of the weeds. So I've been the guy for years, and people have laughed at me, and then you think about it. I do MCOM for a living, did MCOM somewhat for a living as a county emergency manager. But on the weekends, I like to go contest for fun. So spent a lot of time at K5BAT back in Arkansas, and I really enjoy getting on the air. Really enjoy working, particularly sideband contests. But it has benefited me on when it really gets down to when I need the most important filters when I am on the air, especially if I'm doing voice. And where's the most important filter in your station, wherever you're at? It's somewhere between these ears. A lot of times we have to go, what? I know I heard this. And you weed through, and eventually you pick up, oh, did you say you needed water at checkpoint C? Yes. You know, it could be something that simple. But it's important to learn the skills of the hobby in whatever aspect or aspects you may be prepared to do it. And I would encourage you to be prepared in multiple aspects. Again, we're excited about the 90 years. We're excited for another 10, and we may have a big blowout celebration in 10 years. And I hope to still be here for it. So I really don't have a whole lot else other than to talk to you folks. Do we have any questions in the group? Yes, sir. What state? Okay. Right. Yeah, some of the information is going to have to be encrypted, depending on, especially if you're looking at HIPAA information and that kind of stuff. Amateur radio may not be the perfect source to handle that traffic. Do what? Right. So another option there could be find out about local shares activity, there's a lot of amateur radio operators who are providing the manpower to activate and run shares, because you can encrypt on shares. Right. We actually are one of the net control stations for shares at ARL headquarters. So we encourage you to get involved also with shares. That's just another one of the skills and capabilities we would encourage you to get involved with. Absolutely. Yes, sir. I think the primary thing is they're looking for is the government sponsorship or the agency sponsorship. I don't know that it's closed. Our standpoint is we absolutely, and one of the changes that's coming to the Aries plan is encouraging Aries groups and hams to work with GMRS operators. GMRS is another tool in the toolbox as far as I'm concerned. And some of the GMRS operations around the country are absolutely working. From what I understand, and this is from a good friend who's now a Silent Key, former coworker, Bob Nauman, who was director of operations at headquarters for he had gotten, after moving back to Dallas, he had gotten involved with in the GMRS groups in Dallas. They've got a couple of repeaters on GMRS down there that are just nonstop, wall-to-wall talking. He said the main reason he got involved is because there's a lot more traffic going on GMRS than there were on the ham repeater. So we take the stance that GMRS is absolutely part of the equation, and for that matter, FRS. I'm in a community in Newington where we've got about 8 houses now that all keep FRS radios on all the time. We've got, of those 8, we've got 3 older people in the community who have their FRS radios. And we've had 2 occasions already where one or the other one of them, guys, I'm fine, I'm not hurt, but can you guys come over and help me? I fell and I just can't get stood back up. We were able to go help them. So we've seen, and I've seen several occasions of that happening around the country where there's a whole neighborhood that has FRS radios just to talk to each other. And then they've got a ham in the middle of the community, or even a GMRS operator in the middle of the community that can get, relay information or whatever. So yeah, it's just another tool in the toolbox. Thanks, Paul. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. I will add to that too, as far as the encryption goes. There have been, during this most recent request for comments to the FCC, I know of a number of requests that went in and comments that went in during that period of time requesting emergency encryption allowances for MCOM that went into that request to the FCC. So there could be an opportunity in the future for encryption at certain periods of time during emergencies. We don't know that yet. Don't know what the FCC will do. Anything else? Yes, sir. So honestly, a lot of the GMRS operators, I know of at least one sitting right here who is a GMRS operator and an extra class ham. That's typically the interaction you see. You've got somebody that's dual licensed. I'm not yet, but I've said I'm going to. I just hadn't paid the $35 to get my GMRS license. But I know we've got a number of them at headquarters that are dual licensed. So that in a lot of cases, that's exactly how they're doing it. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Anything else? If not, we'll wrap it up. I want to thank you for being here. Great attendance today. You've all been great. If you've got any questions, I'll be around for a few more minutes. Unfortunately, I have to slip out here about noon to get somebody back to the airport. Then I'm driving to Louisville, Kentucky tonight for National VOAD conference next week in Louisville. So y'all have a great evening. Yeah.
Yeah, well, between 50 or 100 video calls and phone calls, and Zoom calls, and everything else, finally we get the news. It's going to call me Monday.